Sloppy Saturdays, back at you guys with another video. And today we are going over our NFL draft prospects that I believe just are a little undervalued. These are guys that could possibly be going in the first round, second round, even farther, but guys that I think should be in different tiers than they are in right now. Again, a lot of these guys are talked about, but I don't think they are being placed in the right position. So let's get right into it. First person in this NFL draft that I really love, and I was honestly quite surprised seeing this guy come out. For a second, I thought he was staying because I was seeing mocks with this guy not in the first round, which really shocked me. I'm going with Jahdae Barron. I believe Jahdae Barron was one of the best cornerbacks in college football this year, if not the best cornerback in college football. And I think the problem with Jahdae Barron and why he's not looked at as a top 10, top 15 guy is because his time playing cornerback. He played cornerback for a short period of time. He was in the secondary for Texas as a safety his first couple years. Then he was a cornerback this year. But I believe this only helps Jahdae Barron while people are looking at it as a negative. I think seeing the game in all spots of the field could only help you as a player. Not only that, we could be looking at a guy very similar to an AJ Terrell, a Tyrann Mathieu, a guy that could play safety and cornerback and could give you that upside as a defensive coordinator, defensive coach to really put him in a multitude of different spots. And I think playing multiple spots could only help you not bust and could help you be a great player in the NFL. Having the ability to play multiple spots, maybe he excels as a safety, maybe he excels as a corner. Now he's going in the NFL draft as a corner. And again, I love it. This was really the only guy and the only team that slowed Jeremiah Smith down. If you guys remember, Jeremiah Smith was a guy that was uninvolved in the Texas game in the college football playoffs. This was largely a part due to Jahdae Barron. Yes, they were playing bracket coverages, but he was the main guy on him. Now, Jahdae Barron has the ability to play on the outside and on the inside, which I really love as well. Again, this is a guy that could definitely shadow a team's best receiver in the NFL one day, having the ability to play all three corner spots. I absolutely love that as well. Now, the only reason why I think he's behind a guy like Will Johnson, I'm not going to lie to you guys, I would take Will Johnson over him, is his size. I mean, he's a 5'11 corner. Will Johnson is 6'2. And again, I do like Will Johnson a little more. But again, a guy like Malachi Starks in the secondary, I know Malachi Starks going as a safety, Jahdae Barron going as a corner. I like Jahdae Barron a little more. Again, I saw Malachi Starks got torn up by Ryan Williams in his best game of the season. Again, Jahdae Barron, I think his tape in Texas throughout the season was pretty consistent, pretty impressive. Again, and I love the versatility of Jahdae Barron. I said it. Again, I love that he played safety and corner. I love that he's seen the field in a multitude of different ways. And I like his ability to go in the NFL, possibly excelling at multiple positions. Jahdae Barron, a guy that I think is completely underrated right now. The fact that he could possibly go in the second or third round, I think, is insane to me. This guy should definitely be a first rounder. Again, probably the best corner this year on impact. Absolutely love Jahdae Barron. Next up, we're going with Colston Loveland. Now, Colston Loveland, again, is a guy that I just think was in a wrong situation this year and possibly even last year to show his talents. Colston Loveland, the tight end out of Michigan. Michigan, these last 2 years, everybody knows, has been a run-first style offense, and Colston Loveland has been able to show his ability. Now, going into this season, Colston Loveland was the number one guy in NFL drafts and NFL mocks at the tight end position. Then Tyler Warren came on super strong. And I'm not saying Tyler Warren doesn't deserve it or Tyler Warren isn't a better tight end. I think these guys are very different. I think Colston Loveland is more of your traditional tight end, a guy that is involved in run blocking. Yeah, he can improve definitely more, but he's a willingness blocker. And he's a traditional catcher, I think, as well. I think in play action, he really excels there. I think his burst off play action is what really separates him as a tight end in this draft. But again, I think a guy people are going to look at, they're going to say, oh, he only had 500 yards. He only had 600 yards. A guy that only had 1,100 yards in his last two college football seasons. This guy isn't worth it. But again, I think NFL draft prospects, draft scouts, and people really have to take away a player from a situation. I think Colston Loveland at 6'5", I think he's one of the best route runners, if not the best route runner in this NFL draft at the tight end position. I think he's going to be an absolute stud for teams. And again, I don't think he's far apart from Tyler Warren at all, Again, you put Coastal Loveland in a different situation, things could be a lot different. I think he could be a main target in an NFL offense. Again, it's just this team. I mean, you're talking about Alex Orji, Davis Warren this year, guys that couldn't break 100 yards passing. I mean, you saw the game with Alex Orji. He had 40 yards passing. Again, what is Coastal Loveland going to get out of that and show an NFL team? Absolutely nothing in these games. Again, a guy that was just absolutely drowned out in his situation. But again, I think him and Tyler Warren aren't that far apart. And the team that takes Coastal Loveland that identifies that this guy could be a top NFL target just because he was in a bad situation is going to end up with a steal. Next up, we're going with Alik Ayumanor. Now, Alik Ayumanor is a guy, again, very similar to Coastal Loveland, that was just in a situation that he could not show the most of his abilities. I thought Alik Ayumanor was honestly going to come in this year and take the college football world by storm. He didn't, largely because Stanford was probably the worst Power 4 conference team, if not bottom 3 or 4 Power Conference team in all of college football. Ashton Daniels was an absolute joke at the quarterback position, and Alik Ayumanor, again, was the only main guy in this offense. But he still was able to put up over 800 yards. Last year, he had over 1,000 yards. And I think Alik Ayumanor is a guy that really could win out on the outside for an NFL team. This is a guy that's being drafted, I think, possibly in the 3rd, 4th round. And I think that's just way too low. You're talking about a guy that's 6'2", like I said, burst off the line, and he could win out in jump balls. I think Alik Ayumanor could really do it all. And again, I just think he's super undervalued. Again, a guy that was in a bad situation in college football, a situation that he couldn't show his ability and the most of his talents. I think a team that drafted him in the 3rd or 4th round. And again, there's always an influx of receivers in the NFL draft. Again, so you got guys like Emeka Egbuka, Tetaior McMillan, Luther Burden, Trey Harris. There's a ton of receivers, which is also why I think this guy is dropping. And again, I just think you got to take a guy who matter out of his bad situation, and you could really see what this guy could possibly do. And again, I think the guy that may even go higher on the combine because again, his size and physical traits are unreal. Reminds me of Tetaior McMillan. Again, just a big receiver that those gifts really just can't be overlooked. And I think the combine, like I said, what he weighs out, what his height is, the things that he could do, he could really showcase there. And I think he could possibly even move up more. But Alik Ayumanor, again, a guy that's just being super undervalued. An offensive lineman I really like in this draft is Josh Connolly Jr. I think Josh Connolly Jr. really helped out Oregon massively. I think they have one of the best O-lines in the country. And I think Josh Connolly Jr. was able to do it in the run blocking and the pass blocking. Again, I think he was a guy that really got better throughout the season. This was a guy that I had on my NFL board as far as last year. And again, I think Cornelius is really overshadowing Connolly because Cornelius is going to be a first rounder. But Connolly, again, I think this guy could be a above average starting offensive lineman in the NFL. And I've seen him go as low as the 3rd round in NFL mock draft. Again, I don't get it. Offensive line is a position like quarterbacks where teams just don't have that position and will reach earlier to get it. So I do think Connolly could possibly go earlier than the 3rd round. But again, you're talking about a guy that was the 2nd best offensive lineman on possibly the best offensive line in college football. I think a team could definitely use Josh Connolly Jr. Now we're getting into Omarion Hampton. Omarion Hampton is absolutely ridiculous. Omarion Hampton is a guy that I think would definitely be an NFL first rounder if it wasn't for Asher Jetty taking college football by storm this year, taking the world by storm this year, not only college football. I mean, this was a guy that had one of the best running back seasons we have ever seen. But, I mean, you're talking about Omarion Hampton, who had 1,700 and 1,900 total yards these last 2 years. This guy can do everything. He's a threat in the receiving game as well. His size really allows him to break tackles and have yards after the run, exactly like Ashton Jeanty. And I'm not going to say that Omarion Hampton is a better player than Ashton Jeanty. Again, I would take Ashton Jeanty over him, but the gap is not as far as you guys think. And again, you're talking about a guy that spent time in a major conference, multiple years in the ACC. There's nothing that Omarion Hampton can't do. And again, it's going to be tough because not only has Ashton Jeanty had an insane season, but you're also talking about a running back class that is as deep as it gets, as deep as I have ever seen possibly. I mean, you're talking about 9, 10 running backs that could be NFL starters one day, NFL lead backs one day. So again, it's going to be tough to see where NFL scouts evaluate Omarion Hampton. Again, if he's not early in the second round, I don't know what they are doing because this guy really should be a first-round running back in any other draft class. I will stand by that. He's not as far off to Ashton Jeanty as you think, and I would way rather have Omarion Hampton in the second round than Ashton Jeanty with a top 10 pick. Omarion Hampton is absolutely ridiculous. Like I said, you're talking about a guy with almost 4,000 yards in the last 2 seasons. The guy is just being completely overlooked, and a guy that even produced this year on a UNC team that really had nothing in their offense. Absolutely love Omarion Hampton. Now, with the last guy we're talking about Jackson Dart. And you guys might be saying, "What are you talking about?" Jackson Dart is definitely being talked about. He is, but he's not being talked about in the same tier as a Cam Ward, as a Shedeur Sanders. And I honestly think Jackson Dart is right there with them. Now, before I say anything, let me preface this. I do not think Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders should be top 3, top 5 picks where they are going. I don't think they have that type of value at all. And I think teams are just really taking them because, again, they need quarterbacks. Every team needs a quarterback. And again, the Titans don't want to go another year with Will Levis. Or the Browns don't want to go another year, maybe with a Kirk Cousins or something. That's why these guys are going in the top 3 and top 5. But again, I think a guy like Jackson Dart is right there with them. Now, I think Cam Ward, I would put him as my number 1 quarterback. He does have a little more upside than Shedeur Sanders and Jackson Dart with his ability to extend plays. But I think Jackson Dart is right there with Shedeur Sanders. I honestly think you can make a case Jackson Dart should go higher than Shedeur Sanders. Now, I know he obviously won't, but I think Jackson Dart, again, is just being way under talked about, way undervalued. I think he's in the same tier as these quarterbacks. If you look at his stats this year, over 4,200 yards, 29 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He had better stats than Shedeur Sanders. And I think they're very similar in prospect. You're talking about guys that do everything pretty well, but again, don't have any physical traits that are just absolutely crazy. But I like Jackson Dart because he played multiple years in the SEC as a starter there, playing tough competition. You're talking about Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward, a little different there. You're talking about guys in the ACC to Big 12 that played in spread offenses, that were throwing 40 times and were able to really show their ability, again, in a weaker conference. But I love how Jackson Dart came out of the SEC. And again, I think Jackson Dart really, him going in the late first round, early second, I think is only going to help him because I think him being in the same tier as guys like Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, I don't think those guys are going to step into an NFL offense in those horrible teams and really excel. I don't think they have the talent to do so. I don't think they will transition well in the first year or two. But Jackson Dart is only going to benefit from being a late first rounder, early second rounder, because you could see him go into a team like the Seattle Seahawks, like the Steelers, like the Jets, where he doesn't have to start right away, and he could really learn behind somebody, and he could go into a team with a lot more talent than teams in the top 5 of picks. I absolutely love Jackson Dart. Again, I just think he should really be in the tier of Shedeur Sanders, of Cam Ward, but he is not. That's why I think he's undervalued and not talked about enough. That wraps up this episode of Sloppy Saturdays for NFL Draft Prospects. Definitely expect more of this coming. You might see a part 2, might see a part 3 of just undervalued, under talked about guys in this draft class. And we are